I thought before we got started, I just wanted to throw up one slide for us to look at. If you could put my slide up, please. Skip forward to the next one. Thank you. Now, what you're looking at here is, this was from a survey that I ran in Sweden and in the UK in the first quarter of this year. And basically, I was asking people, how do you watch TV? Do you watch it OTT, do you watch free-to-air, or do you watch pay TV? And there was no individual choice, you could pick multiple. Now what you see from these, looks like quite complicated diagrams, and you don't need to take pictures, this is available in a free report from my site, TV Universe. So just go to End Screen Media into the research, and you'll find it right there called TV Universe. Basically, what this says is roughly half of people watch multiple distribution paths for their television. So people really aren't differentiating in the way they watch television. Unfortunately, we are differentiating in the way they watch television. Can we go back to the original slide, the slide for the panel, please? So I think it might be very helpful if, before we got started with a proper conversation, we actually took a moment to consider what connected television is. Because we've talked about it a lot, but I'm not 100%, after some of the conversations, I'm not 100% sure that I know what it is. So why don't we start with you, Dan? Give us a definition of what you think connected television is.
Well, Colin, it's broader, I think, than just smart TV. We're looking at all TVs, or indeed all viewing, where it's possible to look at on-demand content. So we see in a lot of markets like the UK, a lot of viewing on Fire Sticks, which are turning a sort of pretty straightforward TV into an on-demand platform. We also would consider, viewing of broadcast content, but on a tablet or even a phone, to be a version of connected TV. So it's really big. And encompasses over 80% of the UK population. So
Leon, yes, is that a good definition?
I mean, I don't want to start the conversation by disagreeing. I'd say, generally speaking, I mean, yes, albeit...
Go for it.
When we reference connected TV, it's usually a big screen, and then, we go into kind of OTT across the other devices. But you're kind of just getting into nitpicky stuff that some people care about, others don't. But when we talk about connected TV, it's really the large screen experience where content is delivered over the top into that. So we're pretty close.
Malin, how do you think about it?
I think it's just distribution. So it's the way of watching content today.
Yeah, Dave?
I think historically we've called it premium content delivered via the biggest screen in the house. And another way of saying that is, I guess, sort of TV's reach with sort of data's precision, if you like. But I think I totally take the point on, where does TV stop and digital start, which I guess is one of the sort of sub-themes of the chat. And actually, if you're watching a Discovery on Dplay on your phone, that's still content that's coming down the pipes. It's still premium quality content. You can still advertise against it, still get reach and want to put your brand against it. So it's definitely an area of kind of contention. And actually the IAB, I think, is even more sort of precise on its latest kind of findings and definitions, and talks about, video content delivered via the internet through a variety of different devices that ends up on the TV, or words to that effect.
So, I think the IAB actually is wrong, because I think we only have to include addressable here. Isn't that connected TV?
I think they would, again, I think it's a live debate at the moment with the kind of steering groups. And I think, whether it's ATV, CTV, I mean, ultimately, I think one of the other panels talked about kind of, all TV always being addressable since the dawn of time for advertisers, right? And obviously we buy on behalf of a lot of advertisers. But I think it's still out there for definition, yeah. Sure.
I think it's time for us to look at the TV industry and the digital industry in combination from a viewer's or user's perspective, and don't do it so bloody hard to understand. Because when I first had the question of being in this sort of debate, I said, no way, I'm going to represent the old traditional linear lady. It's too many sort of, yeah, you understand. And I was able to sit in the middle because I had a red dress or the Scandinavian or something. But what I think is that if we can just agree on what TV represent for a viewer, then we're gonna find out how the advertisers should be connected together with the content. And the only thing we should do as a broadcaster or representatives from the industry is to make it as easy as possible to get the measurement all together and just make it easy to buy.
Right.
It's not that difficult, I think. Yeah.
Indeed. Malin, actually, let's start with you with this. I want each of you to answer this question specifically from your own perspective, and I know you're going to have slightly different views on this, but let's talk about where we see the most value and attention from consumers today. Between all of the ways that people can watch, where is the attention and the value? So Malin, talk about your specific market where you're seeing it.
I think most of you know that we have the measurement in place, so we measure across all platforms. And what we can see now is the habits might be a bit different, not between digital and linear so much. It's depending on how you watch it. So the 50% of the digital watching is on big screens. Of course, you have another sort of habit when you are sitting in the sofa together with a family in front of a big screen than what you have on a mobile. The ad pressure must be different, sort of. The way we present things must be a bit different. But we have to have respect for the viewer. If they watch it from a mobile, then that is the preferred screen they have. And we must make it easy if they want to move from that screen when they're coming off the bus or whatever, coming home. It must be easy to switch over to the big screen. So all these sort of movements and changes in habits, I think that's our business to solve.
Right. Dave?
I think, if we're asking the question, where is the attention of the consumer? It's absolutely everywhere at the moment. Depending on the age group, the demographic, where we're all watching, how we all watch. I think we kind of scraped the surface over the last couple of days in terms of how we're all individually watching different screens at different times. And if you're telling my 16-year-old that she's not watching kind of great content when she's looking at TikTok, versus us as a family, kind of, to your point, sitting down on a Saturday night and still watching whatever it might be, I'm a Celeb, whatever the program might be, those moments still happen in culture. So I think there's a danger kind of throwing the baby up with the bathwater of thinking that kind of broadcast is dead in that sense, and it's definitely not. And I think the two areas should and could and can work together. From our point of view, it's around how you then thread that story for an advertiser in a simple way across multiple channels. So actually, how can you get that kind of single view, omni-channel, when you're buying a campaign and when you're seeing the return of it, and actually how you're then doing things like unduplicated reach and measuring that when the platforms themselves and the broadcasts themselves may be in a different state of evolution. So I think attention is hugely scattered, but I'm an optimist, so I think there's lots that we are doing and we still can do to kind of see the bigger picture.
Very good. Leon?
I think if you look at the numbers, free to air still offers, I think huge value, and it's free, right? Which is always helpful when you're talking about a cost of something. And then as far as attention, it's still there. Now, of course, once you go into some of the younger demographics, that's starting to fade away. And when I say kind of free to air, regardless of how you access that, right? Whether it's through an app or through the actual kind of linear stream. And I think what's most interesting, and it was the Nielsen presentation earlier with regards to Netflix's rise, and now slowly with the increase in fragmentation within the broader SVOD space, the kind of question is, does that value and attention start to decline as it spreads out across multiple different options? And then how does the kind of wider industry start to kind of come back into play with regards to their services? So,
Dan, what's your perspective here?
So I think we would look and try and equate value with consumer interest. So
Yeah.
where an audience is most interested in content, that's where we think they're most engaged, and therefore as an advertiser, we've got the best chance of connecting with them. So I disagree slightly from Malin whether it's a big screen or a little screen. It doesn't have to depend on the size of the screen. I think if the content is demanded, it's on demand, that means there's been a conscious choice to watch that content. Hopefully then the advertising around it is going to be viewed. I think one of the challenges for linear TV is it's always been a sit-back medium. You obviously have these, these big sports events or I'm a Celebrity on a Saturday evening, which get these huge audiences who are very interested, but generally most linear TV, the audience is less engaged. They are, popping off to do other things, boil the kettle. So as advertisers and as agencies, I think we're really interested in that engaged audience, and that's the huge potential of on-demand for us.
But if I watch linear TV live on my mobile, is that not?
I mean, that's when it's playing in both.
I think
that's when it's playing in both camps, really.
We are sort of stuck in a media option that linear TV should be leaning backwards and digital is sort of leaning forward. I think it's just distribution. Digital isn't a media, it's a distribution form, and that sort of includes all medias. So I think we have to look at it in another way.
Do you differentiate when you sell?
No.
Yeah, so you're selling TV4, you're selling X targeting, and that will be across
Yeah.
any device, any delivery.
Yeah.
Great.
So I want to actually follow that thread a little bit that you started there with Dan. So I've no doubt that you have television clients that are coming to you and saying, look, the audiences I want to reach are diminishing on TV. How can I continue to reach them? Tell me about how you advise them to leverage things like CTV to continue to reach. How do you advise them?
Well, we are looking to test connected TV advertising through a mix. So looking at what's the best and optimal mix of linear TV advertising plus connected TV advertising on top. We're working with the likes of Samsung Ads, with Sky, with Samba, and looking at where we're getting the best results. And my main client is Disney. Work with Disney across a range of different categories.
Now there's a conflicting company, if ever there was one.
Lots of fingers and lots of pies.
Yes, they certainly do.
But they are very interested in, how do they maximise the effect of both traditional linear TV, which they not only advertise on but also sell, plus the new area of connected TV. And what we're finding, without wanting to go too much into detail of results, is it's that blended mix is providing us with the best results. That's when we're finding an audience that wants to engage with our messages more, is when we have that blend of linear and on-demand or connected TV advertising as well.
And you're comfortable that you can help them recover those lost viewers in that domain?
I think in the medium term, yes, but I think we are finding challenges with the availability of inventory in the on-demand space. I think we'd love it if there was more. So I think that may become a critical point over the next couple of years. Really, I think once we go into the world of TV deals for next year, most advertisers will be demanding a much higher proportion of broadcast VOD, and I'm not quite sure if that there's enough of it out there to meet demand. So that could be a bit of an inflection point.
Right, and Malin, this is probably not a problem in your market, because I was looking at the data for your market, and it's amazing how fast AVOD is growing in your market.
Yeah, but I mean the people using television figures in I think it's in all Scandinavia, but especially in Sweden, isn't decreasing; they are falling, and that's because the AVOD service is all valid, and we have all the live shows there. We pre-show things there. We have all the content there. It's not a catch-up service. it is all our content available for the viewers. So we have sort of decided, this is strategy sort of choice, that this is our preferred distribution. And I think you need to do that choice. And we have huge problems. And as soon as we sort them out, there are plenty of new ones coming up. So we aren't bored at all, but yeah.
So you would class yourself as a digital-first broadcaster?
Yeah, we are trying to get there. I wouldn't say that we are there yet. We have so many steps to do.
Dave, I could see you were chomping at the bit to jump in there.
No, it's just so great to hear, because actually I think this is one of the big questions, right? Because actually it's about these big tectonic plates that are going on and moving at the same time, to the point on kind of inventory. And actually each of the big broadcasters around Europe, especially at the moment, kind of trying to figure out how best to come to market and whether to, which VOD it's going to be, SVOD, BVOD, AVOD, VOD, whatever the terminology you want to use. And we partner with pretty much all the big broadcasters in Europe, and actually I would say there's a whole variety of different approaches to come to market, not in the least because of the legacy of TV and the fantastic legacy of TV, which I'm always very respectful of, but needs to be solved for in the sense of structurally how broadcasters come to market in the new era, when on the one hand there's fantastic premium inventory and content being paid for, distributed and consumed, and on the other hand, there's a massive swathe of really exciting new, I call them new, OTT CTV players that are kind of pure play CTV that are already out there doing very well and are probably going to get to market very, very quickly. And some names that are coming in from, other areas like Rakuten, for example, at the moment, sort of launching 42 different countries, coming to market very strong with some content. Lots of other kind of big players out there that maybe could or should or might sort of disrupt the old guard who are maybe moving a bit more slowly. But I think the two aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. And actually I think, obviously, what Sky have done in recent years with AdSmart is hugely laudable on the addressable side. And, where ITV have gone in the UK, for example, with their sort of Planet V platform, these are all really interesting developments. And what I guess we would like to see and encourage and advocate more of, and I guess from the SSP side as well, Leon, chip in here if you want, is basically more innovation and more of that to come to work with the DSPs of the world to allow buyers to access that in a seamless way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And what's interesting is you really do see different rates of experimentation by country within Europe. Unfortunately, the broad European market is fragmented. You've got lots of different players doing different things and evolving at very different speeds. And the approach to, even on a basic level like the distribution from a broadcaster side, you have broadcasters in France that will not put their app on a platform unless that platform's paying them some sort of carriage fee. While in other countries, you're probably trying to get as much distribution for your kind of broadcaster app as possible to get those eyeballs. So you really do see different approaches based on the market dynamics. But the positive thing is we are seeing a lot more experimentation. I think people are realizing that you've got to try, even if you're going to fail, you've got to try something new and then kind of go back to the drawing board and get back to it.
Are there some specific groups that, we know we have problems, for example, with millennials. Certainly in the data that I showed, one of the questions I asked was, what do you consider the first place your service, the first service you use? And for millennials, it was OTT in all the three markets that we looked at. So we clearly have a problem with reach with them. Are there other groups? Kids? Is that a problem? What do you think, Dave? What do you think?
So is your question, do we have problem reaching kids?
Yes. Are those groups that we should be targeting right now through CTV?
Kids and targeting from a DSP point of view, probably not an area I want to go into, but I know what you mean.
Right. Actually, when I'm thinking about kids, I'm really thinking about their parents, which is why I wanted to bring them up, because it's like it could be they could be on different platforms.
I really enjoyed I think it was the Viacom presentation yesterday around how, or maybe it wasn't the Viacom one, there's another one just after, around how kind of Generation Alpha, which is obviously after Z, because A follows Z, right, in the alphabet, is actually dictating all the decisions in the household. And from a kind of telco operator point of view, actually, I recognise that with other sort of previous experience. Actually, if you bring the kids in the household on with the right content and, mentioning Disney maybe, get them lined up, then obviously the kind of, the owner of the kind of wallet for the household, be that mum or dad or whoever it might be, parental figure, is more likely to then, tends to more likely then buy into that kind of content package and sort of lead the way from a telco point of view. I mean, in terms of reach, I think it is a good point actually about being kind of privacy compliant, which is the phrase. Actually, I think we also have to be really careful in the digital world to completely advocate for that as well. I think TV's always done a very good job of that because of Ofcom in the UK, because of equivalent societies, etc., and regulation in other territories, although there's other sort of challenges with regulation. But I think it's an area that's only going to grow more next year with the launch of Disney+, for example. And we were chatting backstage around, of course, Disney being themselves a massive advertiser across possibly connected TV in the future, and how that kind of world is going to just kind of complete a virtuous circle, especially with retail and merchandise, etc. as well.
Disney's move is particularly interesting. We think that parents are a core market for that. But basically what Disney is doing, it's quite dangerous. They get basically about $18 a subscriber from pay television, right? So if Disney Plus enables somebody to leave, they're giving up $18 of revenue for the potential of $7. They're not even guaranteed to get that. And no more advertising. So it's big, it's a risky play.
In the US, they have Hulu, and they kind of package as well with the kind of ESPN digital. So they do have,
very attractive,
it's a much wider option and kind of offering within that market. But also, if you can't cannibalize yourself, right, at some point, you're going to end up in the graveyard like many other companies. Yeah. So I think you have to recognize the direction of travel, and go there rather than sitting there absolutely petrified that by offering a consumer this, you're going to lose a couple of dollars on the side.
But I certainly don't want to waylay us on the American market. Let's get back to Europe. So Malin, in your market, are there children, parents?
No, we don't have any children.
You must be doing something in those long dark nights. Come on.
They are forbidden in Sweden. Yeah.
How about millennials? Certainly, millennials, these are digital natives now in the Swedish market.
I think that it's always been a problem to recruiting young people into, they don't want to watch the same content as their parents. It's the same struggle. And if they want to look at TikTok instead, or if they want to consume, it's a competition. And if we can't attract them, well, bad for us. Then we have to work harder. But it's not about distribution. It's about the content.
Yeah.
We need to sort of compete with the content, and we need to be where they want to consume it. I think it's.
Are you investing in originals, by the way? Are you building originals for online delivery? Advertising supported?
It's a bit, yeah.
Okay.
But it's
a little bit.
It's lots of things that is forbidden in Sweden around commercial TV as well, because we were the second last in Europe to have commercial TV. Albania was after us, I heard. So we have quite strict regulations around this. So, yeah.
So I wanted to ask a question, which I know is forbidden in Sweden. Yeah. So we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you in just a second.
Yes.
One of the things I've seen in the US is a lot of success that some services are having with brand partnerships and native advertising. So I had a very interesting conversation with a lady from Cheddar, Executive Vice President from Cheddar, and they're an ad-supported broadcast news network online that has no advertising. It's all native ads. So I wanted to ask if you, perhaps we can start with you, Dan, here. Is this something that your clients are expressing an interest in, working with a creator and a broadcaster in creating content that's a blend of branded and entertainment or informative or what have you?
Yeah, I mean, within the agency sector, the media agency world, it's been fast growing for the last decade, really. There's a lot of our clients are looking to either create that type of native content or are looking to just go through straightforward product placement. In terms of getting onto Netflix, trying to connect with millennial audiences and younger audiences, product placement on big shows in Netflix, Amazon Prime now is growing exponentially. So that's something that a lot of our clients are interested in. I think people are moving away slightly maybe from this influencer world where we could work with influencers on YouTube. I think there's a growing feeling in Europe that needs to be regulated more. I think therefore advertisers are a little bit cautious about what they do, how they work with influencers. Not going away, but it's something to be wary of. But where you've got your brand featured in taped content going out on quality broadcast channels, be that Netflix, be that major terrestrials, that's where advertisers are really interested in that at the moment.
Yeah, Dave?
I mean, I kind of love this area because actually I think this is. You talk about the future of TV conference, like this is really getting into the quick of like where this could go. And actually, at the moment we are like, the trade desk at the moment buys across a lot of different formats, native being one of them, and that's got a particular meaning in terms of digital terminology. Product placement within fast-moving original production isn't yet a format that we buy into. But partly because, that's naturally that's an incredibly difficult area to do, and it takes a lot of knitting together with regulation
and
advertisers.
Very aspirational, because I would say it would probably put us both out of a job if it gets too big, but that's all right.
I'm thinking Rev 2, Rev 3, Rev 4, right? Actually, way in the future, and actually, that's what Hollywood's always done very well in terms of brand integration. And actually, there's an argument the other day or a discussion around actually, you could argue Netflix does carry advertising, which is another favourite topic of mine. In terms of the brand integrations with New Coke in Stranger Things, with Lego, the spin-offs that in terms of retail. There's some really advanced thinking on the brand partnership side. I think where it gets really interesting actually is where, back to the point around consumer attention following content. I don't think we've even scratched the surface of what's possible with broadcasters and new digital platforms thinking about how they really attract attention and compete with the likes of a Cheddar, who's out there doing it completely off the grid, like creating ad copy, which isn't ad copy, which doesn't even attract advertising or advertise themselves or even monetize it in another way. Like we've got two different worlds that are going to come together. And the best thing I saw on the Netflix side was the other day was the kind of rumors that Spielberg is thinking about doing a show that just airs at night. So the idea of TV schedules always being the kind of bastion and the EPG around how things are planned on the content side. Actually, there's a lot of kind of creative formatting that I think could be done where, on the VOD side, where it's about how you get appointment to viewing for consumers, and therefore what we can do as a kind of collective ad industry with the right brand at the right time and all the data set. So, in short, it's really exciting. From my point of view,
A great example I saw on a service called Curiosity Stream, which I believe is available here in the UK as well, was a partnership between Curiosity Stream and Toyota. And Toyota sponsored the creation of this new series they called Speed, which is a wonderful series actually in 4K. It looks marvellous. But they also produce these video shorts, and Toyota has this hybrid vehicle that's hydrogen-powered fuel cell. And they did an interview with one of the female engineers who was working on this project. And I ended up watching this, and it was fascinating. And I guess I'm being advertised to by Toyota, but if it's an advert, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess it comes into different philosophies around what advertising is in a way, and what you're trying to achieve ROI-wise per brand, right, Dan? In terms of from your point of view with Disney, presumably it's multiple different strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just depends on the job. If you've got a movie out in the cinemas, you've got to get bums on seats for that weekend. So that's about mass reach in a very short period of time, and will include traditional TV, out of home, and connected TV, where you want to talk to, specifically targeted audiences for a movie, whether that's Frozen or Star Wars fans. But yeah, then there's these longer play opportunities where you've got the time to tape something for a car brand. The likes of Amazon Prime are really interested in that type of content, and if they can help you promote that content within their world. So all those kind of opportunities are opening up right now for us. And I think, as agencies, we're recognising that linear TV is getting quite old. Going back to the question you asked a while ago about targeting millennials, we are seeing that the average age of traditional terrestrial TV is going up and up and up pretty fast, obviously accelerated by SVOD. So in order to get to those younger audiences, we've got to be a little bit nimble with our thinking.
Yeah. It's great. We've expanded our minds of the definition of advertising, which is great. Leon, I wanted to ask you about something about programmatic, but programmatic in digital. I think that seems to be working extremely well. Plenty of selling going on through SpotX and through other platforms in that space. How is it going with addressable? Are the addressable spots being sold through programmatic yet? And if not, what's the road to getting there?
It feels like this is another place where, as an industry, we probably get in our own way by trying to differentiate between, what's addressable, what's connected TV, what's OTT. I think it was, the gentleman from TV2 at the beginning, just said, hey, this is, we are reaching our audience regardless of how they're getting this content, and all of that is part of our addressable story. And so the answer, to your question is, addressable is going really well, because anybody that's consuming television, whether it's catch-up, whether it's a kind of simulcast over an OTT stream, is a completely addressable audience that you can kind of target, use data sets against alongside your kind of broader strategy. So, I'm sure someone in the audience is going to stand up and say, oh no, addressable is only this, but I would kind of argue against that, and I think that we'd be best placed to kind of move on from these kind of semantic arguments in general.
Very good. I mean, do you have? Are there any specific clients that you can talk about and how they've been addressing this?
I mean, I think in general, as far as addressing how they're delivering into linear streams, is this what we're specifically talking about? I think there's a number of different clients who have what we've really seen the growth of on the advertiser side, at least, is advertisers bringing their own data to the table in order to find their audiences across kind of these broadcast streams, which has been quite unique from what was happening before. And there's been a number of success stories, of course, in the US, but then also as we kind of move into Europe, and as the amount of addressable inventory starts to grow and scale with the introduction of a number of the kind of new companies that were mentioned before, the Samsungs, the Rakutens of the world, you're starting to see real kind of scale within that space.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, but Tim Cyril brought up the scale issue, particularly in linear and live.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the stresses that are felt by SpotX and the exchange, and how you're solving those?
So actually, this was something we work really, really closely with Dave and companies like the Trade Desk on. The problem with, and not to like nerd out at all here, but the problem with live is when a technology sees 1 million requests at the exact same time, traditionally they'll think that it's something fraudulent going on, right? And they throw it out and they ignore it. So what we've had to do as an industry is work kind of really closely to make sure that everybody knows what they're seeing. So the minute that break hits in the England game or whatever that looks like, the Trade Desk can then go do all their smart things to understand what's happening, which advertisers are the best place to be delivered into that. And so it's been, as sports and of course live has been a huge growth area, there's been a lot of work to kind of perfect that.
Very good.
I mean, sports, obviously, its own, topic in its own right. But actually, I think it's interesting from the US as a kind of precursor to what may or may not happen in Europe. interested to get everyone's opinions on it as well. Like, it is like if you look at what NBC have been doing on the live sports side with American football, you know, they've sort of realised that actually what was previously kind of unsaleable, which was the pre-sold stuff, which was happening as part of a big sponsorship, actually the economics are now working where on the fly, and we heard about server-side ad insertion in the previous panel, I think, you know, that becomes a really viable, good option to deliver a really seamless ad experience for the consumer, where you're not thinking, oh, I'm buffering or I'm not buffering. Like, as long as the tech and the knitting has been done in the background, to your point, Leon, like, then that becomes a really interesting commercial opportunity as well. And just referring back to your other point, the other thing I'd add in terms of a trend, in terms of brands and the kind of movement of global ad funding, if you like, moving around that we've seen, is kind of budgets coming from maybe other areas of the world, like APAC, for example, big brands that are moving and want to spend in kind of Europe, in inverted commas, across connected TV, whereas they've not really had the opportunity to do that, buying kind of wholesale across multiple different broadcasters and multiple different OTT platforms. So I think that's a very new kind of buy from the brand and advertising side by virtue of the tech that is now there. And that just needs to happen more, to reiterate one of my other points, you know, in terms of as an industry, as an ecosystem, and kind of everyone in this room, I think, which I think is what we all want.
Very good. So I'm actually hesitating a little bit here because I have several questions that I'd like to ask, and I realise we only have time for one. So I think I'm going to ask about data and combine it with collaboration. So data is certainly something that has come up multiple times. Formats in particular and how we measure have been a continuing theme throughout the last 2 days. And part of the way that you solve that is by everybody getting together and agreeing. Malin, is it going to happen?
I've been saying the opposite the whole day, so I said no. I just had the Gartner study. I don't know if you have time to see it, but they had a new study out, and they said 80% of the data-driven marketing activities is going to be gone by 2025. And I think most of the problems around data is the creepy feeling of being followed. And the fact that data is getting rotten so quickly. So it's like keeping a bottle of milk on the beach one hot summer day. So that's the problem around it. But I think it's always going to be a combination, because from all the speakers we have heard, I think it's a combination between the mass market, the broad, where I used to say that the waste in TV that many digital companies are talking about is the new premium. And if you can target not that narrow, but target enough to be relevant, then we have something really strong to go for in combination with the broad marketing.
Dan, data and collaboration, are we going to get together and agree on standards?
I think so. I think we are. Everyone's been asking for it for the last 5 years, but I think in the next 2 it will happen, that we'll start to get to a point where the major broadcasters agree there needs to be a better means of measuring viewing across not just linear TV, but catch-up TV. And I think it needs to happen faster than Barb, certainly in the UK, are maybe preparing for. I think that the contract renewal is 2023. It's 4 years away, and I don't think advertisers and agencies will be prepared to wait another 4 years to get a system of TV measurement that's comparable with the type of data inputs we can see from digital. So yeah, I think it will happen in the next couple of years.
Liam, what do you think? Can you give us a hopeful end to our panel?
Yeah, well, I think it has to happen, because if you don't do it or we don't do it, then somebody else is going to come in and deliver a standard that, my guess is, works to their advantage rather than the broader industry.
I think we can think of a couple of companies that might
one
want
or
to
two
do that.
people right within that mix. And so I think that realization is there, and you're starting to see things. I'm surprised no one's mentioned Project Dovetail all day today. That seems to be,
Good call.
you know, the ongoing joke of things. So.
I was having a bit of a dig at it.
Yeah.
Dave, we'll give you the last word.
I think I would agree with Leon. I think we have to do it. I think we will do it. I think there's so much we can do already. I mean, and let's be optimistic about it, because, you know, actually the combination of data and TV is really, you know, going to unlock everything, and it's about future technology.
I suppose a hopeful sign is that we at least have a unified ID for ads in the UK and in Sweden. So that's a good start. We don't have that in the US, which is, we're very much behind in that respect. But I think that's a hopeful note on which to end our panel. Thank you.